Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, went up on the mountain, and sat down there. Great crowds came to him, having with them the lame, the blind, the deformed, the mute, and many others. They placed them at his feet, and he cured them. The crowds were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the deformed made whole, the lame walking, and the blind able to see, and they glorified the God of Israel. Jesus summoned his disciples and said, "My heart is moved with pity for the crowd. They have been with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry for fear they may collapse on the way." The disciples said to him, "Where could we ever get enough bread in this deserted place to satisfy such a crowd?" Jesus said to them, "How many loaves do you have?" 7, they replied, "and a few fish." He ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, gave thanks, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the crowds. They all ate and were satisfied. They picked up the fragments left over, 7 baskets full. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today is the feast of St. Nicholas, from where modern Americans, we get this tradition of Santa Claus, right? Claus in German, right, means Nicholas, right? So Santa Claus means St. Nicholas, essentially, in German. Right? St. Nicholas was a saint who lived in the 4th century AD. He was one of the people who was a signer at the Council of Nicaea, the first ecumenical council of the church after Christianity had been legalized, right? He was there, and the story goes, very popular story passed down through tradition, that when Arius the heretic started speaking, right, St. Nicholas, out of zeal for the Lord, right, slapped him in the face, basically, right, to silence him. And so many people know him for that story, but St. Nicholas also was known for a lot of other stories. You might say that St. Nicholas, he was kind of like St. Padre Pio is, right, to 20th century Catholics. It's kind of how St. Nicholas was in the early church. He was known as this great miracle worker. He's famous for one of his first miracles that he performed was that he had some neighbors in his town who basically the father had fallen upon hard times and was extremely poor. And so he was struggling to provide for his daughters and also to find a way to marry them off. In those days, you needed to have a dowry, right, to allow your daughters to get married, and he didn't have it. And so he resolved that he was going to basically turn his daughters into prostitutes in order to support the family. This was revealed to St. Nicholas in a vision of sorts. And so he dropped a bag of coins through the window of this person's house. And it was used as a dowry for all the daughters. One of the traditions of the story says that one night when he went to do this, that the window was locked. And so he had to drop the coins through the chimney. Right? And so we can see some of the early traditions which are reflected in Santa Claus. St. Nicholas was also, he was able to bilocate. It is said that at one time there were some sailors in a boat on a terrible storm at sea, and when they felt like they were about to sink and drown, they called upon the help of St. Nicholas, and he appeared. And he worked alongside them, and they all survived the storm. St. Nicholas, another famous story, is that he saved 3 young men who were falsely accused of a crime, and they were all about to be put to death. And it was revealed to St. Nicholas in the vision that there was some bribery going on with this case, and he appeared at the time where they were about to be executed, and he revealed the truth of the matter. So St. Nicholas was very much a miracle worker, somebody who was very generous, had a deep love for the poor, and he was a bishop. He was also very zealous about doctrine, which we know about that story of Arius. But another famous story about him is that he had a habit of going around and tearing down pagan temples, right, that still existed in his territory. And there are artistic depictions of this in some churches dedicated to St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas the person, right, is a very interesting saint in church history. And I think much more interesting than the modern descriptions of Santa Claus. Right? St. Nicholas was a man with zealous zeal for the Lord, immense holiness, and especially a love for the poor and a love for children. I think all of us can learn from St. Nicholas his example in those ways.